Hi, welcome to my channel where we provide an alternative view to the common narrative. Today is Sunday, the 30th of April, and this is a new edition of mentioning the dates. Today I'm going to talk about the joke of South Africa. When I asked about, what should I talk about, there was one comment that I should talk a little bit about South Africa. Which I will, but unfortunately, I don't know from where you as the viewer come from. So I'm not sure about how many of you are South Africans and how many of you are actually, call it foreigners. So if you are South Africa, bear with me. So if you are interested, please continue watching. Hi, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to actually, I can talk about the history of South Africa per se and so on. But today I would rather talk about a joke. Not a joke, but absolutely a form of idiocy that has taken place in South Africa. And basically what it is a statement by one of the opposition leaders. Okay, maybe I should actually explain it like that. The biggest party in South Africa is the ANC. If you didn't know that, well, that's it. Black ANC, they took command after the end of apartheid in 1994, and they've been in control of South Africa since then. The biggest opposition party at this stage is the DA, the Democratic Alliance. And basically, it controls one of the provinces here in South Africa. Now, a province, I'm not sure, say if you're in America, it would be like a state. If you are, say, in Germany, that would also be called probably a region, like Bavaria or so. And South Africa has about 9 of these provinces. The DA controls one of them, that's Western Cape, and the rest is controlled by the ANC. Now, I can stay with with confidence that the only province that works in South Africa is unfortunately, or fortunately, the Western Cape, and I'm living in it. So it's one of the places where things are still functioning, and that is because the DA is in control. But the problem is that the DA is mostly run by, well, the leadership is mostly white. Yes, they have some coloreds and Indians and blacks and so on in their leadership, but the core of them are still the white. They are mostly English-speaking, progressives, liberals, and stuff like that. But this is also one of the reasons why they have the biggest party, the opposition. There are smaller parties that cater for certain blacks and Christians and other types, and there's also where the old Afrikaner is still supporting the Freedom Front Plus, which is also fairly significant, but not in the same class as the third biggest party is the EFF, which is a radical black group. But the point here is that the leadership, or the leader of the Western Cape province is called Alan Winde. And Alan Winde has now, about 3 days ago, pronounced that if Putin comes to South Africa and he goes into the Western province and Cape Town, because Cape Town is situated in the Western province, Alan Winde will arrest him and deliver him to the ICC. Yeah. Provinces don't have control over the police. The police is a national controlled. That means controlled by the ANC. So there is some call it provincial police that was created by the DA. And then Alemony wants to arrest Putin. Now, I'm sorry, this is the most ridiculous idea. Even if they try to do it, then the South African police will immediately interfere and then release him. But the goal of these people, that's amazing. Now, before I started this YouTube video, channel, I actually, I never did it. But in the last, I started off with COVID during the COVID pandemic. Why? Because I didn't believe in it, and there were a lot of things that didn't gel. And, well, we all were locked down, so I had time to do it. So when I subscribed to some newspapers and so on, they have a comment area. And then I regularly commented on these articles, especially being anti-COVID. I never believed it was a pandemic. It was untested vaccines. The technology that was involved was ridiculous new. It has never been tested on human. And then, well, I don't want to go into this story, but basically I didn't trust the governments. They, in any case, double talk in their own speeches. Like, in the one sentence, they will say, but the vaccines doesn't prevent the spread of the virus. But in the same sentence, they say, but you must be vaccinated. That's contradictory. In any case. So I left a lot of comments on her. And then I was one of the few, actually. There were about, I think, probably 2 or 3 of us that were. And but there were a lot of pro-COVID and pro-vaccination. And in any case, so I got a lot of responses to my own comments. And then later on, the whole thing, the Ukrainian war started. And again, I was pro-Russian, pro-Dinges, and I got flagged for that. And a lot of comments basically targeted against me that that I was wrong and so on. But it's not a problem. But the problem here was that most of these guys were white people. Fellow South Africans, not black people, white people. They promoted vaccines. They promoted, supported the whole vaccination. They accused us of all the same propaganda that we have been hearing during the COVID era. And we now hear again all the propaganda and unfounded statements and lies and so on that we hear about the Ukrainian war. And you can look at our media. And our media is pro-Western, anti-Russian. Every propaganda, I mean, I'm not going to repeat it, but like it was, Putin is a psychopath. Putin is authoritarian. Putin shouldn't have started the war, has no reason for it. NATO is a defensive organization. All this other bullshit. You know what we always talk about. So I'm not going to list all the items. But they are basically pro-America, and they fall in the same trap. And I'm talking about the whole media. And the whole media is controlled by whites, not by blacks. So one must understand that. Now, our media is not that bad as it is in America or in Europe. But the problem is usually that Reuters is the biggest distributor of news items. And South African journalists are not active in foreign countries. So they are dependent on a Reuters type of information that's provided. And we know that Reuters has been captured by the same propaganda and the same people that control the other medias. So unfortunately, that's the only information they have available. And that is why they repeat it. And that is why they are actually anti-Russians and pro-Western narratives. You can see it straightforward. You can see it in the articles, the way that they write, the stories that they write, what they write, how they write it. Sometimes I wonder if they start and copy and paste it and put it into a Google Translator or whatever, deep learning translator. So bad is it sometimes. But the biggest joke is like this guy who doesn't have the authority, who's a provincial I don't know, not a minister, he's not, I don't know, leadership, position of the head of the province, thinks he can go against the government and arrest Putin when they come after the police country. So if you haven't known it, a couple of years back, we had a similar situation with the president of Sudan, and we didn't arrest him, and it was a big hoo-ha because we are part of the ICC. And after this whole affair, the ANC applied to disengage from the ICC, but for some other reason, our courts didn't allow it, and then typically it wasn't necessary anymore, and they let it go. So recently, they again said they're going to now withdraw from the ICC, and then they get rid of all the story about Putin coming for the BRICS summit later in this year. But we all know what the ICC is. It's a specifically targeted political tool for the West. Have you seen any American president in the ICC? Have you seen any European leader in the British one? They all committed war crimes, but none of them have ever been called before the ICC. What have been called is the enemies of the West. So it's a farce. And that's why I can't even, doesn't matter whether Putin was wrong or right, it doesn't matter, but the ICC as an institution is pathetic. It's been compromised. There is no fairness or legal basis for it. But in any case, weaving some little bit of background and so on, is that what I don't understand is that South Africa was a colony of the West. It was exploited by the West. It's still being exploited not by the West. So why would they support? Why would the whites still go? And by the way, all right, during the apartheid era, the Soviet Union supported the ANC, trained some of their military personnel and their leadership, gave them education, but some of the ANC leadership was also in Britain and America and stuff like that. So it wasn't only the Soviet Union, but they supported mostly the ANC during the struggle years. Now it is being assumed, yeah, but the ANC is now pro-Russian. They don't say pro-Russian. They talk about Russia, but they actually mean Soviet Union. Sometimes they mistalk, and then they accuse Putin of the Soviet Union, the communist state. And that is the point of the view of the whites here. They still cannot disassociate or recognize that times have changed. There is no Soviet Union anymore. The ANC doesn't really owe Russia anything because Russia is not the Soviet Union. They do not understand that Russia is not a communist country, but a democracy, just like in South Africa. Well, not in South Africa. South Africa is not a democracy, by the way, but that's a point for another video. But Russia is evil. Why? Because they are the Soviet Union and the communists. That is the whole argument about them. They cannot dislodge themselves or face reality. They cannot see that there are changes in the world. I mean, they still say, yeah, but we have to stick to Europe and America because those are our biggest exports. No, Europe is our biggest export, not America. And what they don't see is that the world is pivoting to a multipolarity world, which actually means that the East is going to develop. It's time to refocus from a dying dynasty or empire, America, and a colonial and dying empire of Europe, and recognize that the world is changing. And you have to grab the opportunities that is being presented. It's like when I told you many times we have lockdowns and shutdowns and so on, where we have no electricity. Then when the generators break down in the coal-fired power stations, they start the diesel generators. Now we use a hell of a lot of diesel. And when I suggested actually in some of the comments, it's time for South Africa to buy diesel from Russia at a huge discount, then we don't have to pay so much for our electricity, and that would be good for us. And actually, that created an uproar. How can I suggest that? Putin is bad. Putin is about Ukraine. And forget about, even if I mention that the coup about 2014, if I mention that 14,000 people of the Donbass have been killed in the last 8 years, they ignore it. When I talk about Yemen, they ignore it. They just don't answer. When they answer, they become personal. They attack me on a personal basis, but not on the facts. Because they have no facts. They are talking the same narrative of all these super woke, super liberal idiots in the West. They are selective memories, selective views. It's like the facts get lost somewhere in the ether. I'm saying, well, we need power stations. The Chinese have nuclear power stations. The Russians have In fact, the Russians is one of the most advanced nuclear reactors they have developed recently, where there's very little, where they can use MOX type of fuels, which is a rework of used nuclear fuel. And you can process that. And they can come here, and where our coal-fired stations were so corrupt, and it took, say, 10, 15 years to build a coal-fire, which still doesn't work. These guys can come in, build a nuclear plant, put it there, puff, boom. 8 years later on, it's finished. In the record time. Because our South African cannot do it. Because our South African industry is so corrupt and so filled with ANC cadres that that's why it took it so long. That's why they stole so much money. That's why we have this corrupt type of government and industry. Because they're all managed by the blacks. The ANC. Not the blacks, the ANC. Yeah, sorry. And don't get confused with that. ANC cadres. China is prepared to give them money. No strings attached. Russia can give you energy. No strings attached. America and the EU gives you loans with huge with conditions that has a huge negative impact on your industry. South Africa was once the gateway to Africa. But if you now look at Africa, China and so on, they are ignoring South Africa. They are going straight into various African countries and making huge inroads, building infrastructure and etc., etc. South Africa is part of the BRICS countries. Seize the moment. Get involved in the multipolarity world. But that's not how the whites see it. That DA see it. And the funny thing is that people don't support, a lot of people don't support the DA when they vote. It's not that the DA's principles are that fantastic and so on, but we are voting against the ANC. And that's why some of us vote for the DA. It's just like Biden wasn't elected, according to the American narrative. People voted against Donald Trump. Not that I believe all this crap, because I think Donald Trump, the election was rigged in any case, with all the postal votes. That was a big scam. But in any case, that's not my problem, it's not my part and so on. But the parliament, they voted anti-Trump, not pro-Biden. And the same here, we vote anti-ANC, not pro-DA. I would like to vote for the Freedom Front Plus. But I cannot do that, because I stay in the Western Cape and they are not prominent here. So either I throw away my vote, or the ANC gets my vote. Useless. So in spite of all this rigmarole, I mean, Cape Town even had the Ukrainian flag colors on the parliament building. How ridiculous can you get? It's like waving the Ukrainian flag and, I'm pro-Ukrainian. They don't know what's going on there. They are idiots of the first class. So, I don't know. If everything actually hunky-dory under the DA, no. Also not. There are a lot of other parts of the Western Cape or Cape Town where not enough attention is given to the colors and the blacks. And they are treated unfairly. So the DA is no angel. And they're stuck in the past. They are actually samely brainwashed as all the others are. Like I said, you forget about colonialism and exploitation. Isn't it time for Africa to go its own way? To move away from the old colonialism, the people that exploited you. There are people that are still exploiting you. Just because you talk the same language doesn't mean you have to support them. There's a new world coming and a new opportunity, and South Africa must grab it. But it seems to me that neither the DA or the ANC is able to grasp the new opportunity. I look at the problems in all the world, and that's right. But South Africa per se has bigger problems than what the world has. But the funny thing is that actually, I'm being told many times that, hey, in spite of all the bad things in South Africa, we are not the worst. There are a lot of countries that have worse conditions than we have. So, that's another joke the way he told in any case. But maybe I will make some other videos about South Africa and see maybe just a historic type of weapons or lessons or why we actually do what we do, how we do it. But we will see. So my story for today was the Alan Windley story, which I think is a huge joke. And that's it then for today. So until next time, cheers.